Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're so excited to have you today on our, I guess we can call it Webinar Wednesday. Yeah, the faces that we've seen, it's good to have familiar faces, and we've also seen a couple of new faces, so welcome. For those of you that do know us, we're Learn2. For those of you who don't know us, we're Learn2. And at Learn2, we're changing the way the world works. We have been in business for over 30 years, and we are one of Canada's most award-winning performance companies. Today presenting a very interesting topic, and the most requested topic was how we took our live programs and how we moved those over, transitioned them over into the digital world. I have some field experts, who are also, I'm so lucky to call them colleagues and friends. We have Amy Dano, Director of Operations, Experience and Operations. We have Carrie Millen, our Master Facilitator, and we have Kara LaCastro, Experience and Communications Coordinator here at Learn2. A couple of housekeeping rules you will see up at the top of the chat. It just goes through the name of the webinar. If people pop in late, I'll check in. It's got the contact information for us, our names. The chat box is in the right bottom hand of your screen. If you have any troubles at all, my email is in there, samantha@learn2.com. You can also text me at 226-407-5088, and that's also in the chat box. Okay, let's get started. Today, we're going to speak about how we moved from live to digital, and there's going to be three important contexts that the girls are going to talk us through. Amy's going to speak about platform, all things how to evaluate different platforms, important lessons when testing. We're then going to move over to Carrie, who is going to do our delivery, facilitation, and program design, all things on how to make that possible. And then we're very excited. We've introduced a brand new role of the orchestrator, and I'll let Carrie get to that a little bit later. And in true Learn2 tradition, we start with goals, and we always begin with the end in mind. And that's exactly what we're going to kick today off with, a quick digital version of our Save the Titanic. Enjoy.
Well, senior officers, our current situation is dire.
Okay, guys.
Open the manual. Do you want to take a second to read it, or just one of us want to read it? Or?
Let's send the crew with the build prompts for the Monarch action. Stop, Tom.
This
is gonna sound crazy. I saw in the operations manual we have guns on board. Passengers
You want to shoot them?
Team, you made a valid effort. How did you show up as a leader, and what would you do differently?
I wanted to keep track of the passengers, the crew, and the ship.
Officers, the architect was incorrect. We do have more than the design time. Consider all of your resources and save the passengers, the crew, and the ship. Your experience starts again.
The passengers, the crew, and the ship. Your experience starts again.
So with that, you can see there's lots of juicy bits. There was a ton of work that went into that. Learn2 actually started our virtual move about 2 years ago. COVID pushed us a little bit faster and got our butts into gear. And let's get started. I would love to introduce Amy Dano, our Director of Experience and Operations, like I mentioned, and she's going to be going through all things platform. Hi, Ames.
Hi, thanks so much, Sam. Oh, wow, this is such a great turnout. So happy to be talking to everyone about platform, one of my favorite topics, not only at work, but also at cocktail parties. So that's just a little about me. So one thing, our focus today is really looking at how we went from our in-classroom experience to deliver our narrative immersion experiences into this digital space. And like most people, we were reacting to a global pandemic. And when we start receiving phone calls about a lot of our clients were banning travel, we're like, okay, so we can't physically go to client venues anymore. What are we going to do? How are we going to adapt to this? And So before we jumped right in and just reacted to, getting up and running on a platform, we really took a step back and wanted to identify and address what problem we were actually trying to solve. And when I talk to other clients about this exact question, what problem are you trying to solve, when they talk to me about platform, lots of times I hear, we're looking to solve participant engagement. We don't know how our participants are going to still have that level of engagement in this digital space. We're so used to the human interaction and the human connectivity. And which is, such a great question, and it's a really good, problem to have. And I always meet them with, going back to participant engagement really starts with a strong instructional design, which Carrie Millen's going to talk about in a little bit. So, because lots of people sort of equate having high participant engagement with all the bells and whistles that you can find on platforms, and that might not necessarily be true. More times than not, it's more of a distraction when you have all of the things. So really honing in on what the problem is that you're trying to solve is really going to guide how you start your search for a platform. So once you have that nailed down, really clearly articulating your business requirements and looking at it from all of the big buckets, from all of the users who are going to be involved in the process. So, as a facilitator, I want to experience, and as a participant, I want to experience, and as an administrator, I want to experience. So you're writing out all of your business requirements based on all of the individual users who are going to be using the platform, either from an end user or from an operational standpoint. And when this list is clearly written, and you can start off with at the big bucket levels if you don't really know what you're supposed to be looking for. So you can start at those higher level buckets and then really drill down into the specifics of it, because later on, when you get into the testing part of your process, you're going to use that list as your checklist to check off everything to make sure that your requirements are being met. And as a subcategory to that, to break it down into must-haves and nice-to-haves. Just so that, again, it'll help guide your decision-making later down the road if you come up to a situation for a feature where it could be a deal breaker if it doesn't have a must-have or nice-to-have. And the last thing here before you start to do your research into looking at platforms is to really have an understanding of what your budget and timeline is like. Depending on your business requirements, which are guided from the problem you're trying to solve, you could spend anywhere on an annual basis from $500 a year to $30,000 a year. And it's not I don't want to say that as a scare tactic or as like a knee-jerk reaction. It's looking at where you're investing your training and development money, and what are the expenses that you're not having to address right now. We're no longer traveling to client sites. We save on travel. We're no longer having to book catering or book a room rental somewhere. So we're really investing in the vehicle of our narrative immersions, which is so great. So I wanted to quickly just have a quick example of what one of the problems Learn To was trying to address before we started looking for our platform. And if anyone on this webinar has been live in one of our Save the Titanic sessions, or anyone who has not, we have main facilitators who's the captain of the Titanic, and then we have coaches in the room. And the coaches respond to tables of participants in real time. And so when we're moving to the digital space, one of our problems was if we break participants off into small groups, into breakout rooms, there still has to be that real-time responsiveness. So in a classroom setting, you can make eye contact with someone if they have their hand up to say, yeah, I acknowledge that you have your hand up. I'll be right with you when I'm done. There's that level of just feeling heard, feeling acknowledged. So when we were looking at, okay, so that real-time acknowledgement is super valuable and it's super real, and it's going to guide how we start writing out our business requirements, because having breakout rooms became one of our main features that we needed to look for when we were going through our platform process. And not only just, do they have breakout rooms? What are all the functionalities of it? Are we able to see webcams in breakout rooms? Are we able to seamlessly, as the host or captain or coach, seamlessly move in and out of the breakout rooms to look for people who are typing in live chat or who have raised their hand digitally, and we can acknowledge them? I'll tell you, out of the gate, one of the first solutions that we came to the table with was let's have all hands on deck. So for every client, all hands on deck. Every breakout room will be paired with a facilitator and a coach for every breakout room. And so, when we were addressing clients who had 4, 5, 6 breakout rooms, we then needed to staff it with about 12 Learn To staff. And while that was a good approach to solve out of the gate, we were looking at the scope and scale of it and thought, that's not the best way to be using our human resources. So then we started looking into how can we more seamlessly have that interactiveness between breakout rooms. So moving on, so when we're talking about we're looking at our non-business requirements that we need to address early on, is any platform that will allow you a free trial to be able to get your hands dirty, get right in there. Lots of vendors offer demos where you are receiving information, but your hands aren't learning. You're hearing a lot, you're able to ask questions, but you're not able to touch and feel it in the way that you know that you're going to be using your design. And that's so important. And one of the best questions to ask your vendors is to have a trial extension. They'll say you have a 7-day free trial, ask for a 3-week extension, because they want your business and you want to be able to thoroughly break and fix and test all the ins and outs of the platform. Again, looking for a platform that has great customer support. That just sort of goes without saying. It's always nice to have someone who is a technical operator of the actual platform, have them on standby, easily accessible. That's always super helpful. It just sort of eases some of the stress. And then knowing what your feature limitations are. And I'm going to go back to the example of breakout rooms, where we knew that breakout rooms was one of our key must-have business requirements. And lots of vendors that we talked to were like, breakout rooms? Yeah, we've got breakout rooms. Come on down. I got breakout rooms for days. And when we got in there and started testing out in our free trial, we came to really realize what those feature limitations are. Oh, this one only has a maximum of 5 breakout rooms. Oh, this one can only support up to 20 people in a breakout room, which is a large breakout room. This one doesn't have webcam accessibility in breakout rooms. Oh, okay. So when you have that understanding of what the feature limitations are, you can start to tighten up those business requirements as well. So when you go back to another vendor to talk about what features they have, you can be really specific and say, I'm looking for breakout rooms, minimum number of breakout rooms, 50, and to support this many people, and to have webcam capability, and to have chat notification, throughout each of the breakout rooms. So you'll start to really craft what those requirements are. And this is this is what we landed on as far as our platform process. So again, everything always goes back to identifying what that problem is, and then really crafting those business requirements. Once you move into research phase, again, lean on those requirements to see what you need, excuse me, and go into testing. I'm going to grab a drink of water here. Sorry about that. So once you start testing, you're actually going to be sort of in this back loop of test things out, see what you need, go back to research, test it out, see what you need. And this loop can last anywhere from a week, 6 weeks, 2 months. It really is, not settling. It's landing on the best vehicle that you're going to be delivering your, A+ level instructional design in. So once you've landed, then you're gonna, go through negotiation and selection with your vendor. That's great, and that puts us at a really important point of configuration, and that's really making the platform your own and looking at the instructional design, how it's been configured in this digital space, and really looking at your assets. And one of the things we noticed was all of our materials in a print world were delivered portrait. And in this new digital world of ours, we've had to configure most of our materials to landscape. And it was like, okay, going back to that participant experience and, what's the participant going to see? How are they going to use it? How does it look on their screen? What's the look and feel? So really spending a lot of time into that configuration phase of this process is really important. And then next is getting your team onboarded. So again, anyone who's going to be using the platform, your facilitators, your orchestrators, your administration team, how they're setting stuff up, how they're sending invitations to participants, how do they manage registration, what does it look like? This, spend the time investing here, because it'll make everything else down the road that much easier. So once the team's been onboarded, really recommend to run alphas and betas in that safe space with, small groups of clients or leads or friends or family who understand that they're in an alpha or beta. So they understand that their feedback, not only is our participation appreciated, their feedback in how it went is really going to guide and shape how our live digital experience is going to be. So alphas and betas, and then once we get into live digital experience, this is where all the money and magic happen. This is it. This is where we all want to get to. It doesn't end there though, because every technical platform is going to have an update. Maintenance is going to be required. And so there's going to be a loop back into that onboarding alphas, betas before we go back into live digital experience again, because we don't want a new feature to be rolled out that we're not familiar with, and the first time we use it be live with clients. So that's the platform process. And I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into our world in terms of what we were doing with some of the testing. So I'm going to go back to the breakout room example again with how we wanted to be responsive with our live chat notifications. Sam, can you go back to that slide, the previous one? So one of the things that we thought about after we had tried and tested to have all hands on deck, all team members in. Our second step that we tested was, okay, what if we had multiple computers set up so the orchestrator can run the back end and have multiple computers, and one computer would be dedicated to one breakout room, so they would have eyes literally on all chats at all times. And so we had our learning lab set up in my home office where we tested responding to live chats over multiple computers. And so we thought, okay, can it be done? Yes. Is there another solution for us out there? Yes, absolutely. Let's go to the next slide. So one of the platforms that we actually ended up landing on is called Jigsaw Interactive. And as you can see here, I wanted to sort of showcase how there's breakout rooms set up, and there's 4 different videos playing in each of the breakout rooms. And I mean, without me saying the story of it, this was me going in to breakout room 1, click video, leave. Breakout room 2, hi, chat, leave. And it all happened so seamlessly. And one of the pieces of feedback that we consistently heard from participants in our early digital days was they were having a lot of competing screen real estate. When we would send them a PDF to open or a video to watch, we wanted their webcam on, and they thought, okay, well, we can't have all these things on our screens. So like, we either need to have multiple monitors, which we're not all fortunate to have. So when we found Jigsaw Interactive and they had this ability to have all the panes open on one screen, that really was a light bulb for us, and we went back to our business requirements and said, yep, this will do. Next slide. Oh, that's just how we configure it. And here's a list of platforms that we ended up researching based on our problem, based on our very specific set of business requirements. So we researched and tested these ones, and we actually still use 2. We do use Zoom and we use Jigsaw Interactive because we were finding that some clients had certain restrictions on their end. So we needed to be adaptable and flexible and say, no worries, if you're unable to use one platform, if you're unable to use Zoom, we can offer you Jigsaw Interactive. So we're always able to meet your needs. Any questions?
Any
well, I guess questions will come at the end or pop in the chat.
You forget what an in-depth, these things get thrown at you all the time, and great job. When people see the outward facing products, they have no idea the research that goes into it. So thank you for you, and thank you for being a detailed oriented girl on the side, helping us so much. And to layer onto Amy, I'd love to introduce Carrie Millen, our internal master facilitator, and she's going to walk us through the delivery, facilitation, and the program redesign process. Hi, Carrie.
Thanks so much, Sam. As you can see from this picture in front of you, our live sessions are so interactive. We have costumes, the participants are dressed up. How do you take that kind of immersive learning and actually bring it to the digital world? Well, we've had some great success with it, and some of our clients say it's even better than the live session. So let's we'll look at what's the same. We'll also look at some of the challenges and where we really found our niche spot in being able to move things to digital. So first, what's the same? We are still developing people. People are at the root of it. They still have needs. We have to put them first. People are the same. Businesses are also the same. Businesses still expect their people to continue to work. They still also expect results from this learning. And all the principles we've learned in certification and such in my whole life, all of those still apply. How you engage people, the importance of using questions, 70, 20, 10, all of those things still exist. And it's about using them in a new platform. And if I was to give an analogy around it, we've been driving a car, and in my experience, as we flip this over, I've been driving a car in North America on the right-hand side of the road. It's automatic with all the bells and whistles. And all of a sudden, in this new digital world, I'm in Europe on the wrong side of the road, driving standard in a country that I don't even know the language of. And that's kind of what it's been like over the last 12 weeks. We've navigated it and come out so much further ahead. So what were some of those things that were thrown at us? Well, let's look at some of the challenges. We bucketed them into people. People, the learner's experience, as I said, was so important and is still so important, and they're less comfortable. So meeting them where they are versus expecting them to be where we are is really important. You heard so much about breakouts from Amy. Well, breakouts have amazing pros because people can get together, they can get dirty and mess around with some of the concepts we're learning on, and out of sight is out of mind. So keeping that in mind, just because you send them off doesn't mean they actually know what to do. And that's really changed a lot in our design, where not only do we have the instructions on the screen, we have the instructions sometimes in the title of the breakout room, and we have the instructions on their manual, their PDF manual that they're using, and often we'll even drop those instructions into a chat that they're able to see. So out of sight, making sure they're not out of mind. and competing priorities. You're probably doing it yourself right now. You've got the webinar open and there might be Outlook open or something else. Being able to be so engaging that you are able to capture them and so they don't have the competing priorities. Rules from the beginning of the session and holding each other accountable to them. One of our biggest things that we found is we don't, unless there's a dog in the background, encourage everybody to stay off of mute. Being off of mute means you're engaged. This isn't a conference call, which is ironic because we're doing a webinar now and I'm not listening to at all what you're saying. That being said, in our learnings, everybody's engaged. Everybody is adding things. If they don't feel like speaking out loud, they're contributing via chat, being able to get them engaged. That's all about people. Or there's so much more about people, and those are some of the key pieces of challenges. When it comes to process, now I'm a pretty outgoing, flexible, one of the things I love facilitating so much is being able to change and pivot and think off the top of my head. Well, in this world, every second counts. A lot of our sessions we were initially running at only 1 hour, and 60 minutes goes by in a flash. You're late, people are coming in, people are looking to get off a few minutes early, you've only got so many times. So planning and communicating with my orchestrator is so important so that we know what happens. There's no delay. You know, a minute delay in getting a video loaded might mean we might lose somebody and not get the evaluation done or not get a feedback you need later on. Which also the process, and you've heard a bit about Orchestrator and you're going to hear a bunch after I'm done, the role of an orchestrator. I'm facilitating here. I need someone who's got my back, who when I reach out, they put something into my hand. They know if without having an orchestrator, and it's really challenging. If you can't have an orchestrator, the second best thing to do is log in on a separate computer so that you can see what your participants are at least seeing if you can't have someone that's able to hand you things left, right, and center. And production and product. You'll see we use a lot of P's as we go through here. The screen is the new medium. This is our medium, what's in front of you right now, and being able to think outside of the box, think outside of the screen, really. The fifth element. Digital is a new form of communication. I mean, I've been doing communication skills since my first out of school when I worked at Dale Carnegie. We have been helping people communicate. Well, it used to be verbal, nonverbal, written, maybe written email, written more formal. Digital communication and how we convey our thoughts over this space is really new. And considering that they're learning in this space and they're communicating in this space. And a perceived anchor to technology. So you saw Amy talk about how we want to do everything we can to keep you in that one screen, especially if you only have, say, your laptop you're working off of at home. And it's a perceived anchor to technology. Just because you're digital in front of somebody doesn't mean you can't use some of the spaces and some of the elements. And we'll go into how you do that when I pop over to that next topic, which really is how do you stand out? Use the space, embrace digital, and consistency. What do I mean by these? And we've got some really hands-on, gritty examples on what we've used here. Using the space. Number one, I'm standing. I facilitate all of my sessions standing. It allows me to use my arms, use my body, feel more like I'm facilitating. Often when you sit in a chair, you slouch back, you're maybe not there. This allows you to project and connect with the audience in front of you. Number two, using the space is being able to, I actually don't even remember why that two is there versus the one, and maybe, oh, I know, I switched them. I think we'll go to number three. Use props. Use props. This is an iceberg. Actually, it's a bluebird. That's an iceberg. This is a bluebird. Just because you're in this digital environment doesn't mean you can't use the, hey, this is a turtle. Remember to slow down. I've put him on my shoulder as I've facilitated. Humor still works, and being able to use that in the space. You heard Amy talk before about how we've changed the orientation of a lot of our PDFs we send out to people so that they can have on their screen. And interesting enough, in Jigsaw, depending how we use it, sometimes we need it portrait, sometimes we use it landscape, but being considerate of how are they going to receive it. So sometimes that means reworking things. And using the faces in front of you. You've got them, interact with them, point at people. We rename people so that they're in certain orders. Or, well, if you'll notice one of our pictures, you'll see through this, somebody's renamed Bud Light. That happens to be our Friday get to know each other session where we name whatever drink we're having at the time. So embrace this space and use every corner that you can. It's one of our coaching things we say to our facilitators. If you're not touching the edge of your screen, you're not engaging enough with your participants. That's about using the space. Embracing digital. You'll notice behind me I've got a white screen. That's a dollar store shower curtain, two in front of each other, very highly technical, and it gives consistency. When I'm upstairs in my house at my other desk, I have a cat that normally walks across me, a husband, a child, a lizard. So having a consistent space and making this my studio with a closed door. You'll see the equivalent picture of me with it hanging from the side. What's great about this is when I'm not facilitating, it's just hooks in the ceiling. It comes down and my house is sort of back to normal. Number 3 is the keyboard. I have a keyboard so that I can type, and the keyboard is at the perfect height that I can type to you right now, and I could be typing things in chat right now. It's right there. It's not down low. It's not up high where you see my fingers. We have someone else that on our team, when he types, sometimes the camera catches his hairy fingers. Sorry, Tom. You've got 4. Get a webcam. When they originally went to digital, it was really hard to get webcams. Have a webcam with good quality that picks up what you need. 5, a ring light. My teenagers might think I'm almost cool because I have a ring light. I think they're just mocking me. Having a ring light so you've got some great color coming in. Without that ring light and with my overhead pot light, I actually look like I should be from the Addams family. So make sure your light is great. And number 6, on my windowsill, I actually have purchased an additional web for my wireless, which allows me to directly plug in when needed if my Wi-Fi is weak to my computer. And if not, I'm 3 feet away from my Wi-Fi. How often can you say you're only 3 feet away from your Wi-Fi when you're facilitating? Not very often. So being able to purchase something like that makes a big difference. So, consistency. Few things we use when it comes to consistency. And one thing that's not even on that screen I'll pop into is pause. As much as I said every moment is important, the consistent use of us role modeling our behaviors, and one of our behaviors is pause. So I'll do that right now. Number 1 also here is consistency in symbols. So our learners, when they see the symbol of, it looks like an Eggo on top of a computer, they know that's large group. A chat window means you're going to type into chat. A pencil means you're going to do some self-reflection. So even if they didn't quite get the audio instructions from us, they've got a symbol to remind them. Number 2, we use images. This is from Orchestrate Impact, our leadership development program that we do in a variety of organizations that actually impacts the performance and has a proven impact on performance. We use musical themes throughout it. So when you see 2 kids at a computer, you know it's time to go to a breakout, and in that breakout, I'll have one other person. My instructions on the top say X, Y, and Z. X, how long is it? Y, what am I going to be doing in my breakout? And Z, what's the outcome I'm looking for? That happens to also be an amazing tool that you can use when you're dealing with sending any emails, setting up meetings. It's also a great tool outside of here. And number 3, we use an image of a metronome. Every time you see a metronome, that means it's measurement, and a Menti or another application will show up, and we'll look for your feedback and be able to give us feedback so we can continue to grow and go into that cycle that Amy talked about earlier. All of those things put together allow you to be able to deliver a great environment. It takes some chances, it takes some challenges. I might still get a little bit of goosebumps in this new world, which is a good thing. If you're not getting goosebumps, you're not stretching yourself and your application and your program enough to really meet the needs. So go out there, stretch yourself, and learn how to do it even better with an Orchestrator.
We love Carrie, and thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We got a lot of comments as you were speaking just about your energy, the great ideas, and that's a very dynamic team. Just to recap, we had Amy who went through our A to Z platform, one of the biggest roles, because without those important platforms, Carrie would not be able to deliver what she does. Then we had Carrie going in through the A to Z of using your space, using digital. We're in that digital world now. It is going to be part of our new normal, and then consistency in our programs. And now I'm happy to introduce Carolyn Castro. We created a very important role, and that is of an orchestrator who is not only a support system, is a backbone in helping our facilitators run. And let's hand it over to her. Hi, Kara. It's so great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love talking about the orchestrator role because it's so important to how the facilitation runs. So right now I have a picture which perfectly summarizes the orchestrator position.
A bit of an echo. Do you have two videos going? Okay. Okay, let's try again.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. All of these little technical things that happen in our world of digital. So as I was saying, this picture of mission control is the perfect way to kind of summarize what an orchestrator is. You are mission control. You are helping the rocket get into the air. And you are not just looking at the experience in space. You're focusing on what has to happen before it goes into space. What has to happen when it lands so you're successful for the next mission. So really, you are the guide. You are helping guide the experience from beginning, middle, start, pre, end, whichever part of the mission you're on, you're in it as the orchestrator. So there are a few key responsibilities of an orchestrator. One, you are the tech guru. You know the platform and you know the details of the platform. You're not afraid to geek out with the platform. I always say when I'm going into my platform, having my orchestrator day, as I call it, I write a Slack update that says geeking out in X platform, and I just sit in there and I really embrace the platform. Like we all mentioned earlier, you really get your hands dirty in the platform and you just really kind of figure out all those new details and just really embrace what we're using. And you have to know the difference of different machines and the different languages that Mac computers and PC computers use, because often I know when we're in Zoom, I have a different command on my keyboard because I'm a Mac than what Carrie has when she's on her PC. So it's knowing those little intricacies that really help guide how the facilitator tells people how to do it. If you're on a Mac computer, do this. If you're on a PC, do that. So it's really knowing those little intricacies to make sure that everyone feels like they're prepared for this new digital space. So when you're doing all your tech guru, you're geeking out, you're also focusing on being that troubleshooting person. So whatever phase you're in the pre, during, post, you're helping with any tech problems that could be happening. A lot of the time, sometimes it's connecting audio and video. If sometimes the mic isn't matched up to the right monitor, or the video's not grabbing from the right screen, it's really just making sure you have an idea of what those things are and those solutions to offer people, because as we know, sometimes it might take a few minutes to get connected to everything as you load into your new platform. And like I said, it's also, you have to take into consideration of different people's skill levels in different platforms and on different machines. There's some people who are newbies on using platforms and using Zoom or any type of webcam or streaming service versus some people who are super experienced. So kind of knowing a ground-based language to use so that people can get it is very important when you're troubleshooting as well. And we talked about material as well. When it comes to, in this platform, it's best if it's this way rather than this way. It's focusing on those little intricacies of the materials, what needs to be sent out, what does it have to look like here as opposed to looking like here. So that's a really big part of material. And another thing is, what things would be experience enablers for participants to know? Would it be beneficial to have a video before the platform? Would it be beneficial to send them a reminder email before the program telling them, okay, come ready with this? It's those little things that you can do to prepare the participant, and those little things that will just add a little bit more meat to the overall experience. And lastly, you're a representative. So you're not only representing the facilitation and your facilitation team at your company, you're also acting as if you are a role model for the participants to follow. So your microphone is off mute, your camera is always on, you're engaged, you're nodding, you're listening, you're adding things into chat, you're just engaging the conversation and making people realize that this is a space where we can all collect and collaborate. And I have swimming duck under there, because really you're calm and collected up top, but your feet are just paddling away underneath, getting everything done. And so, as Carrie mentioned, we have a lot of P's happening here. So I kind of show up ready in these different 5P formula. So like I said before, you know the platform. So you got through your geek out phase, you know the software, and you're ready to embrace the platform and also be open-minded. So you can break free from any conventions. Like, for instance, in our Save the Titanic program, we use our chat to log actions. And it's really taking, what is the purpose of this and how can I bend it and be open-minded and break free from those conventions, and not think that I have to be focused on its one purpose. We could use a chat, we could use a poll, we could use things for different ways. And you can really bend something to make it work for yourself, make it work for the program, make it work for the facilitator. Really, the world is your oyster in platform. And so when you're not constrained, and when you know the different abilities and you know the different ways you want to use the platform, that's when you can go into practice mode. Now, we talked about being in the participant's point of view. And what I like to do when I practice is either I'll practice with somebody, or if I'm practicing by myself, I'll have two computers. So I have one as the host view. So that would be what Carrie would be seeing as a facilitator. And then on the side, I would have the participant view. So what is the participant seeing? What's different in those point of views? That way I know how to tell Carrie that here's how it looks like for you. Your button is over here and it's clearly labeled, versus the participants, it might be a little bit different for them to see. Like an instance in our Jigsaw interactive platform, in the facilitator's point of view, they see a clear link to go to the breakout room, versus the participants have to click something in order for it to pop up. So knowing just those little differences in knowing how the facilitator is going to deliver. Okay, you'll see a notification for breakout room coming up, just those little things to give just a deeper layer and get us into seeing their world in their eyes, in their point of view. And also when you're in that practice, that's when you're problem solving. So you're discovering a lot of issues before they even arise, like how we talked about the shape of a participant manual, and how when we were in Zoom, we were realizing that because our computers are shaped landscape, it makes the most sense to have our materials shaped landscape. And when we move into Jigsaw, it actually makes sense to have it portrait. So really having those intricacies and those problems solved before you really get into it, and before it becomes a problem without you even realizing it. And another great thing is prep. So what can you already have in there? What is beneficial to already have loaded and queued before the session starts? My big thing is to reboot the computer. It's nothing worse. The worst feeling is all of a sudden you needing to reboot your computer 10 minutes before, and then all of a sudden your computer decides it needs to update right now, which I've had plenty of time. So give yourself enough time to prepare your system for what's about to happen. So I would say reboot around an hour before, just to give time for if your computer decides to do a system update, if you're like me and you keep deferring it because you're like, I'll do it tomorrow. it might pick that time to update. So just give yourself time and give yourself for the platform to do an update as well. Sometimes Zoom all the time comes out with daily or even weekly updates. So just keeping yourself informed of those things as well. So that way everything opens properly and you're just not dealing with those little technical things that can really stress you out. And last thing is planning. So you'll have a plan. In my case, I have a plan per facilitator. So I have a plan with Carrie where I take care of her back end. She likes to control the slides, have her visual and her words match up to the slide at her own pace. Versus with Doug, I take care of the PowerPoint slides. He just focuses on the like eye contact, just making sure that he's not worried about the tech. I've got his back. That's totally fine. So you'll have a different plan for a facilitator and also a plan for yourself. So I would have a Q&A list for myself of what would happen if I did this and this happened, or what would happen if this didn't happen. And I would almost set up my own Q&A and answer my own questions myself and be over prepared rather than something happen out of the blue that I'm not expecting. And so that takes me into my setup of my computer. So I always have two screens. My screen on the left is usually I'll have my run of show or my system tracker or however which way you want to have your log of what's happening on. And then the other screen, as you see, I have a full view of the participants, the chat, just so I can see I'm there in the chat and I'm looking at everybody and I'm acknowledging their presence and they know I'm here as a person to listen, yet I'm also following our program standard and what we want to have completed on the other side. Now, in this example, this is kind of what we've used as a run of show for our Save the Titanic program, and how Carrie and I communicate with that run of show is she has it open, I have it open, and whenever a participant has an action, we have a number associated with it. And so when Carrie sends me a number, whether it's on text or we're typing in chat, I know to play that video because we're following along that same tracker. And also keep in mind that you are leading this world of an orchestrator. This world is very much how you believe that this role would fit in your world. For me, I need to have the run of show on this screen. Yours could even be, sometimes I even go into YouTube and have all the videos queued up. And it's really, you're working side by side with the facilitator. You're working on what's the best way for us to deliver this program? What's the best way for me to deliver this for you? And what's the best way for us to work together? And remembering that you directly impact the participant's experience in this role. So whatever you decide to do it and make it your own, and make it your own encompassing formula for being an orchestrator. So how does the orchestrator work with the facilitator? I kind of have this space theme going on of me being mission control, Carrie being the astronaut going on the mission, and then participants would be in the space station. So you're both directly connected to their experience. And so while we're all on the same mission, I have a different purpose in serving the mission to help with Carrie, to help with the participants. And we're all still on the same mission. So keeping that in mind. So like I said, back end is super important. You want to make sure the mission is running smoothly, whether that's figuring out that people can sign in on two devices and you have to connect both devices together, because that's very interesting when people sign in and they need one source for video, one source for audio. Knowing that you need to connect those when they come in is super important. You're also the eyes and ears on other things. So I keep an eye out on the chat. If someone looks like they've typed a question, if someone looks like they're having trouble in the platform, if it looks like they're waving or trying to get someone's attention, I make sure I directly go to them and I see what they need or whatever help or if they have a question, I kind of take them aside, whether it's a private chat or if sometimes even I could be sent into a breakout room with that person, if that works better. Really, you're just another set of eyes and ears, and almost you're just keeping an eye on things and making sure everyone is comfortable and feeling good in the platform. And a thing for me that I do is I also take notes for improvements. Sometimes we do this, sometimes we don't. It just depends on how the program goes. And sometimes it's even as simple as I sometimes add it in real time because that's what we're doing. But either way, I'm always taking notes. I'm keeping up to date with the innovations, and it's landing those innovations to prepare for the next mission. It's never you don't just end. It's the end of one mission is always the start of another one. So it's keeping that in mind that every mission you go on is directly affecting the next one that's going to happen, and just tying all of those together with the innovations and keeping them together and connected. And the last thing, I thought this was a great quote to summarize the Orchestrators Experience. An astronaut landed from a mission going to the moon, and the Denver Post was asking him, what was it like? Like, how accomplished do you feel? You must feel so proud of yourself. And he said, I think about the personal accomplishment, but also there's a sense of grand achievement by all the people who could put this man on the moon. So you're helping put that man on the moon, and take that with every stride you take. And in this orchestrator role, think about what are all the different ways I could put this person on the moon, and make that your own process.
You see now how important it was for us to create this role. And Carol, such a perfect fit. Everything she spoke about today just shows you the importance of, first we started with that platform. Then we had Carrie moving all of ours into the platform. And then we had Kara come in and just knock it out of the park with being that backbone, that support system. And let's speak about the value that comes with that. A lot of people have asked, it's not the same. It is the same, because our value proposition never changes. Whether we're face-to-face or digital, it stays the same. And that starts off when you come into our world. We have a needs assessment, and this is where we dig in a little bit deeper into your business needs. We walk through your goals, your challenges, where you are, where you want to be, and what's holding you back. I then take all that juicy information and set up a call with you, a design call with our master facilitator and you, and that will go through tailoring the experience for you. What do you need? What's important to you for the outcomes? Even though our programs look like they're off the shelf, they're actually not. They're customized to your challenges. We then assemble the team. We have your designated team, which will always include either 3, 4 of us. We have so many more on the team, depending on the size of your group, and getting all that logistical information. So once we've reached this stage, there's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of planning, a lot of customizing in the back end to move us to that experience. And whether it's face-to-face, whether it's digital, you will experience the same immersiveness, the same dedication. Once we're done with that, we have a little bit of a letdown effect, and that is where you walk away for a couple of days, and then we get that debrief call set up. And in that, we'll go through what we thought, what you thought, what we can do better, just that real honest conversation and giving you a report. We'll also go through next steps, because you can't solve everything in one session. Do we need another session? Do we need coaching? Do we want to add an application piece? We have these great application tools, and I'd love to set up, if you're interested, we'll get a call set up with Carrie afterwards to speak about how we can increase 4 times your return of investment just by adding a small application and coaching piece to it. Just some simple numbers that run with this. A live experience face-to-face will start at about $10,000 Canadian, and the digital is basically cut in half now. We don't have the travel fees. We don't have the room fees, the food and beverage. Unfortunately, you do have to cover those fancy meals now by yourself at home, which is, you can still make a day of it and order a good lunch and some good drinks and make it comfy for you in the background. And with that, all we've spoken about today, you really have to experience it to believe what we can do and what we have done. And Tom always says to me, Sam, I can't tell you what a roller coaster is like. You have to go onto a roller coaster. And we're going to do that today. And just by attending today and being a big part of our world, we would love to offer you and 5 of your team members an experience with us and doing a 2-hour, the half day has been a bit long. We did some research, a 2-hour session of Digital Save the Titanic. How do you activate this? Open your email, text me, Samantha@learn2.com, or my telephone number's on the screen. Send me your contact information, and I will reach out to you to get the experience started. Ladies, any further comments from you before we go to a quick Q&A? We do have a couple of minutes, and then we will give people a couple of minutes back of the day.
Nothing from me.
Nothing else from us? No questions?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any questions here from the crowd? Thank you so much for joining us. I know things are busy and there is that Zoom fatigue. I hope this wasn't one of those cases. I feel super energized. I love the team and I love what we can do. And you will feel the same way by doing a live experience with us. My email is on the screen. And if you would like to set up time with an orchestrator to learn about the orchestrator, I can connect you with Kara. Platform, start with your platform. Don't just go with anything. I'll get you set up with Amy. And then our Jack in the Box, Carrie, for all things design and all things wonderful. From us at Learn2, thank you for joining us today on our Wednesday webinar, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.